Here. Mrs. Gherkin,
Here.
Mrs. Barwig,
Here.
Ms. Barnes,
Present.
Mrs. Eichenberg.
Here. And could we stand for the pledge, please?
United States of America. And to the republic for which it stands. Nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
I have to say, I really enjoy having the students participate with us. That was a great idea, whoever thought of that. I'm going to take credit. And then Dr. Durant, the mission and vision, please.
Yes, Toledo Public Schools' mission is to produce competitive college and career-ready graduates through a rigorous curriculum across all grade levels by implementing Ohio's new learning standard with fidelity. Our vision statement to strive to be an integrated school district whose graduates are college and career ready. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll move on to section 2, presentations, and that would continue with Dr. Durant.
Yes, I'm going to turn this portion over to Ms. Mazur.
Thank you, Dr. Durant, and good evening, everyone. Tonight, I have a great story to share. This comes from Christina Ramsey, the principal at McKinley STEM Academy. Last year, during remote learning, our art teacher, Erin Clinton, worked with her 4th and 5th grade students to answer the question of how can we spread positivity through art in our school and our community. Her students began studying the work of artist and muralist Kevin Bongang. Kevin is an accomplished muralist and has created private and corporate sponsor murals throughout Georgia, Tennessee, and Ohio. He has also worked with Jamba Juice, bands, and other corporate sponsors. After learning more about him and how he puts his artwork to spread positivity, the students met with Mr. Kevin, as they became knowing him as, via Google Meet. He explained how he uses murals to spread positivity in communities using his particular style of art. He also developed a strong relationship and rapport with the students, who were so inspired that after talking with Mr. Kevin and meeting with him, they asked, what can we do to bring him to Toledo, Ohio, and create artwork with him that we could then publicly display? That is when the discussion began to gravitate towards our community partner, Mr. Matt Yarder, and the question became, could we work together to collaboratively create a public piece that spreads a positive message in our community? From there, the project took off, and we were so excited to welcome Kevin and his wife. This was 2 weeks ago. Can't believe that it's been that long already. They worked with all of the students in the school, grades K through 8, but primarily focused on the work of creating a movable piece of art. Just when they thought the project couldn't get any better, Kevin mentioned wanting to meet Gabe Galt, the artist commissioned to create the Glass City Riverwalk. Aaron reached out to Gabe, and immediately not only did Gabe respond, but he also said he would like to talk to his project and design managers. The following video shows Kevin's visit to McKinley STEM Academy, and one other important note, ProMedica donated $25,000 to the school for an outdoor art project.
Hi, my name is Christina Ramsey. I am the principal here at McKinley STEM Academy. So today we have our visiting artist with us, Kevin Bongang from Georgia. He is working with every single one of our students in the building, K through 8, on some sort of art project in his design. He is a muralist from Georgia. This whole project started last year because our art teacher was just really trying to figure out how you teach kids art through a Chromebook during a pandemic.
We started with when we were remote learning, and I needed to, engage kids online as we were sheltering in place, and I decided that, maybe we could interview an artist.
My name is Kevin Bongang. I'm a muralist, illustrator. I'm here working with the kids at McKinley STEM Elementary to create these unique, everybody's going to work on the panel measuring by 8 by 12, and then collectively together they're going to be put up, and they're going to be able to travel around Toledo as a movable mural. So really looking forward to the way they turn out. We're currently still doing a lot of the painting. Here I gave them the demo. A lot of the kids are feeling real comfortable with painting and having a lot of fun. Everybody's super invested in it. So just seeing the excitement from all the students and what they're creating has been inspirational to me as well. So really fun project. I hopped on the Zoom call with everybody and got to meet most of the students. Told them a little bit about my background and why I do art and how I'm able to make a living off of that. So after about a year of my conversations, she reached out and said she really wanted me to come meet them in person, and I thought that would be totally awesome.
He is painting on the bricks in the hallways with the kids, so we're taking some of those concrete blocks that are already existing bricks in our school, and we're allowing the 7th and 8th graders to kind of leave their legacy on those bricks, leaving positive messages and kind of working with some Kevin's color palette and in his style, so that even well after they leave the school, their mark was still left here on the wall.
When we draw stuff, he comes and talk to us. Sometimes he sometimes when I see his work, he teaches me stuff to draw, stuff that I draw on my wall, and he uses certain colors, like bright colors and stuff. So I try to use that on mine.
Probably just like
how he uses his artwork, what the colors he uses, and how it affects other people. I want to try to do that. Like, I want it to be heard from people. Like, when they see it, they actually think about it. And he's like, oh, that's pretty cool. And so it's going down or something like him with his artwork, and so happy about it. You know, he doesn't use, like, he's not like the sad and, you know, just depressed. He's like joyful and puts out his artwork, his colors and shapes and words. Our whole entire class wrote him a whole bunch of notes. We wrote him a whole entire paragraph. That they use lines to break them here too. And I'm actually really happy about that.
My studio wall is actually covered right now by all the thank yous. So when she reached out to come out here, I was actually going and I really want to be a part of it. Just being able to inspire the next generation, it's really important to me, you know.
I'm probably going to try to be an artist, and because Kevin inspired me. He showed me how to draw a little bit, he showed me how to draw a little bit. He gave me some information that I could be able to put inside my drawing. He want to help me out. I created like some type of monster and a pig, and I created some like lines details, some triangles that can all be mixed together to create one big art. My inspiration is going to be strong like a monster because monsters have super strength, so be strong.
It's been a very humbling experience and really almost surreal to me because now just knowing that I have this new generation of kids, which like they look up to me, being able to be such an inspiration and positivity is very dear to me. I really am honored by that. I want to thank everybody here at Toledo. And I say Toledo because I feel like I've been welcomed by the whole city, but specifically all the students here in McKinley STEM Elementary. I've had a fun week, but I will be back in Toledo. I'm really looking forward to coming back and seeing everybody's panels and hopefully working again in the future. So it's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much, Kevin and Brittany, for coming to Toledo, for spending this time with us, for engaging our kids, inspiring our kids. We're just really, really grateful to you for giving all of our artists the opportunity to work with you, a professional artist, and also a huge thank you to Matt Gardner for making the kids' vision and dream come true with this movable sculpture. We just really are grateful to you as well.
Kevin Bongang, thank you so much for coming. Brittany, thank you so much. We are so appreciative for you to have been here, and you're always a part of our family. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. I really enjoyed you being here. It was really nice having you. I wish you could come back even more so you can do art with us. But thank you very much for coming to our school. Thank you for coming to McKinley and at all schools that you could have picked in Toledo. Thank you for giving me and a whole bunch of kids in Toledo inspiration. And thank you for your artwork and your positivity. Thank you all for that.
I just love that. But there will be more to come as the movable art piece is finished, and we will be working with the Art Commission to find places for it to be placed throughout the city in the coming months. After that, then I just have the privilege to wish a few folks congratulations on their retirement. Joanne Wilson, a custodian from Sherman Elementary, she is retiring with 25 years of service. Miss Denise Witkowski, she is the registered nurse at Whittier Elementary. She is retiring with 28 years of service. And Miss Constance Wooden, the building operator at Crossgates, she is retiring with 44 years and 8 months of service to Toledo Public Schools. And that is a total of 97.8 years. We wish them all the best. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that presentation. We certainly, and the board, I'm sure will make some comments here shortly, but we certainly thank Kevin and Brittany and ProMedica and our McKinley staff. Wonderful job. And then congratulations, of course, to our retirees. My goodness, 44 years and 8 months. Moving on to section 3, community comments, and it shows that we do not have any this evening. Is that correct? Okay. Move on to section 4, and I don't see any of the organizations here this evening. So we'll move on to section 5, comments by the board. Mr. Vasquez.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate what some of the things that you've already said. I think it's great that we have Kevin and we have all this activity at McKinley. It's very positive. We need positive kinds of things during these times. And it motivates our students, but I think it also motivates all of us. I know it motivates me to feel good. I thought that was interesting that he said that our students gave him inspiration. I'm sure that all of you who are involved with them every day are able to feel that same inspiration from our students. I also like to congratulate our retirees. And every time I hear how many years they have invested, it makes me pause for a little bit to make sure that we're recruiting talent and such committed workers to not replace them, but to carry on much of the work that our retirees were doing. Thank you.
Ms. Eichenberg.
Thank you, Ms. Farwig. First, I have to say I almost cried during the artist video because when that child said, I think I want to become an artist, you know, everything we do is really pointed towards helping our kids learn what might they become. And when I, being married to a professional artist, hear a child be excited and understand more about how that works and what a professional artist can actually do, because here they are working one-on-one. I'm so excited. My husband got opportunities like this with visiting artists at the university level. For us to be doing it at the grade school level is amazing. And I know other schools have done some visiting artist programs. This one is awesome because they took that virtual experience and made it real. That's incredible. My hat is off to our teacher and our principal at McKinley who came up with this. That's amazing. So I could go on and on. I'll stop, but it's awesome, just awesome. The other thing I wanted to say, if you're a parent who watches these high school midterms did come out, I imagine junior high did too. So if you're looking for them, you know, they're out there and they're on Parent Portal. You know, for good or for bad for your student. And we had a mixed bag in my house, but that's typical. So the other thing I wanted to say about participation in the arts is that it's something that we don't measure at a state level, and we should. It should be on our report card because there is a lot of study and proof that says if you participate in the arts as a high school student, you're going to graduate better, you're going to do better in your academics. There is a hook, there's something that happens in the brain. You know, there are things that we know that you can find data that associates participation in the arts with better academic outcomes for our students. And so, you know, we are fortunate to be in a good financial position as a district, but I know sometimes districts get scared and they start cutting back on funding for the arts. We don't want to do that here. And part of the reason we don't want to do that is because the percent of students who participate in the arts in high school definitely impacts our outcomes on graduation and grades. So, you know, hats off to all of our staff and administration for continuing to support the arts. And hey, Legislature of Ohio, get busy and add things that really matter to our report card. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Barnes.
Thank you, Madam President. Like my fellow board members, I think we were moved by the video, and what I saw is that folks who are working in our district, our educators, our staff, our bus drivers, our administration staff, to see those kids smile with joy. This is what the hard work, the challenges, that's the payoff. And I hope when you see that video, you know that because of what you do daily for our school district, we are able to give kids that opportunity, that access that's important to their future, to their dreams and aspiration. The second thing I want to talk about, actually I got three, so please bear with me, is mental health. A lot of things are going on, and studies have been coming out about Facebook and Instagram and how it affects our youth, and also adults, how everything is constantly negative and in your face. So please, in your household, talk about mental health. Take that time for your mental health, and let's try to remove that stigma that having mental health challenges is a weakness. I think we have to be role models for our youth, and we should start with ourselves first. And my last thing is right now, I would like to personally support and encourage our educators and fellow school board districts across the country that is advocating for our youth to have true access and knowledge of American history. I know it's been challenging, but our kids are worth it, and I will support you and advocate with you no matter what. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Gherkin.
Thank you. I was really excited to see the video, and I'm glad you mentioned how important it is for us to have visiting artist programs in the district. It wasn't lost on me that this very extensive project was born at a STEM academy, and it really was an example of project-based learning at its finest. What starts with a question, and then students sort of lead the questions further and further until it has become a full-blown project. I'm sure that the instructors from other disciplines at McKinley are just sort of really excited about how to extend this into further study. What are the social implications of your traveling art show? How many people got to see it? How did they feel when they saw the colors that your artist in residence told you were really soothing and helpful for other students? So it really is a fine example of project-based learning, and I think it's a great opportunity to tip our hat to the notion of robust art program at a STEM academy. And I also want to continue to thank our staff, everyone at every level in our district, for keeping the ship afloat, so to speak. We've had to invent multiple different school districts over the last 2 years. Our ongoing virtual academy is up and running and well staffed, and our kids are back in school full time, and we are doing everything we can to keep them in school full time and to keep them safe. As everyone knows in the community, we have critical staffing shortages like any other industry. So again, I would say if you're looking to join the TPS Proud team in a variety of roles, we are happy to have you. And so we want to keep kids in school, and in order to do that, we have to have the adults to run the district and teach the students. So we are always imploring the community to consider joining our TPS Proud team. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gherkin. I had already thanked Kevin and Brittany earlier and Prometica, but I would also like to just take a moment to recognize the fact that we had the United States Secretary of Education, Dr. Cardona, here in our district recently. It was quite wonderful to see the national attention to our district and to our SMARTS program, which was a board initiative. And so the students did a wonderful job. I thank them profusely. I made sure I introduced myself to each of the students. It was an honor to represent the board in meeting Dr. Cardona. I will say that the staff did an excellent job, but the students were just phenomenal in their thought processes and sharing what they have learned and what they would like to see happen in their district and maybe even across the nation. So it was truly an honor to be there, and high praise for our students in that event. With that said, we will move on to section 6, the consent agenda. Agenda items 6.01 through 6.34 are the consent agenda items. Board members may request to pull an item from the consent and move to the discussion section of the agenda. Items 6.01 to 6.04 is human resources. The chair is Polly Taylor Gherkin, co-chair is Stephanie Eichenberg. Items 6.05 through 6.13, Finance and Business Operations. Chair is Bob Vasquez. Co-chair is Chris Farwick. Item 6.14 is Technology Improvements and Process Committee. Chair is Stephanie Eichenberg. Co-chair is Polly Taylor Gerken. Item 6.15 to 6.16 is Curriculum Committee. Chair is Polly Taylor Gerken. Co-chair is Chris Farwick. Item 6.17 to 6.29 are the Policy Committee. Chair is Sheena Barnes. Co-chair is Bob Vasquez. Item 6.30, Arts, Athletics, and Student Activities Committee. Chair is Stephanie Eichenberg. Co-chair is Chris Farwick. Item 6.31 and 6.32, Family and Community Engagement Committee. Chair, Bob Vasquez. Co-chair, Sheena Barnes. Item 6.33 to 6.34, approval of board meeting minutes. I'd like to request a motion to approve the consent agenda. So moved.
Vasquez, second.
It's been moved by Eichenberg and seconded by Vasquez. Any discussion? Hearing none, treasurer, please call the roll.
Mr. Vasquez,
Yes.
Mrs. Gerken,
Yes.
Mrs. Barwig,
Yes.
Ms. Barnes,
Yes.
Mrs. Eichenberg.
Yes.
Thank you. Section 7 of the agenda consists of reports and minutes from this month's committee meetings and are here for information and reference. No action is required, so we can proceed to Section 8 of the agenda. Okay. Section 8, discussion section, and that's instructional section. You had a chance to look that over in board docs. I'd like to request a motion to approve discussion item 8.01.
So moved, Gerken.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, treasurer, please call the roll.
Mr. Vasquez,
Yes.
Mrs. Gerken,
Yes.
Mrs. Barwig,
Abstain.
Ms. Barnes,
Yes.
Mrs. Eichenberg.
Yes.
Thank you. 8.02 is the non-certified section. I'd like to request a motion to approve discussion item 8.02.
So moved. Second, Gerken.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, treasurer, please call the roll.
Mr. Vasquez,
Yes.
Mrs. Gerken,
Yes.
Mrs. Barwig,
Abstain.
Ms. Barnes,
Yes.
Mrs. Eichenberg.
Yes. Thank you. 8.03 is a resolution opposition to House Bill 126, House Bill 140, and House Bill 123. And I will read the resolution at this time. Whereas 3 bills have been introduced in the Ohio House of Representatives that are currently before the Senate Ways and Means Committee and that would impact public education. One is House Bill 126, Property Valuation Challenges and the Board of Revisions Process. The second is House Bill 140, Modification of Ballot Language and Election Notices. And the third is House Bill 123, Community Reinvestment Areas. Whereas the bills undermine the concept of fair school funding, and whereas House Bill 126, which has now been introduced 3 times, requires a highly problematic and overly bureaucratic process for school districts when filing property valuation claims or counterclaims with county boards of revision. This process will result in the politicization of the county boards of revision process, which will negatively impact not only school districts, but also the residential and commercial property owners whose values are accurate. And whereas House Bill 140, which has now been introduced 3 times, will require confusing and unnecessary changes to required levy ballot language. And whereas House Bill 123, which has now been introduced 2 times, would change requirements for the state's Community Reinvestment Area Property Tax Abatement Program, one of the state's most used incentives, thereby negatively impacting school districts and employers. And whereas House Bill 126, 140, and 123 will have a significant negative impact on public education if they become law. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Education of the Toledo City School District that Section 1, the board formally opposes and rejects House Bills 126, 140, and 123 of the 134th General Assembly as legislation that would have a detrimental effect on public education and would undermine the concept of fair school funding. Section 2, the treasurer is authorized to deliver or cause to be delivered a certified copy of this resolution to community leaders, to members of the Ohio House of Representatives and the Ohio Senate, and to the office of Governor Mike DeWine. Section 3, this resolution shall be in full force and effect from and immediately after its adoption and shall supersede any prior resolution or act of this board, which may be inconsistent or duplicative with the provisions of this resolution. And Section 4, it is hereby found and determined that all formal actions of this board concerning and relating to the passage of this resolution were taken in an open meeting of this board, and that all deliberations of this board and any of its committees that resulted in such formal action were in meetings open to the public in compliance with all legal requirements, including Section 121.22 of the Ohio Revised Code. May I have a motion, please?
Barnes, so moved.
Vasquez, second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Ms. Gerken.
I just want to make note of one of the things that is most troubling about this rash of legislation that's being proposed. I don't think there's too many people who disagree that school districts in Ohio have to unfairly rely on a rather heavy reliance on the local share of revenue that's being generated, and that, is why we're always talking about fair school funding. But what these bills do is make it even more impossible to raise our local share. So you can't have it both ways. Tell us that we have to raise our own share, the majority of what goes into educating our students, and then make it impossible for us to do so. So that's, one of the things that stand out about this rash of bureaucratic pieces that make it impossible for us to do exactly what we're forced to do, which is raise our local share of revenue to support our schools. I will be supporting this resolution.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Ms. Eichenberg.
Yeah, I'll just say thank you, Ms. Gerken. I think that was really well said. These all seem like extremely sort of underhanded ways to undo processes that the legislature has already just decided with fair school funding. Let's not waste our time. Let's agree that, a lot of people worked on that and came up with what seems like a fairly decent solution across the state to address a system that frankly wasn't even constitutional. So let's not make it so that now we can't count on the local part being the way it's always been and create a new mess. So totally agree in that regard with Ms. Gerken and appreciate that, we've taken the time as a board, and I appreciate your leadership, Ms. Barwick, in making sure that we comment on this because, one of our biggest jobs as board members is to make sure that the district looks good fiscally. And we've worked really hard to do that. We have a great treasurer and his team, but we can't do a great job if our hands are constantly being tied behind our back while we're trying to do this. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, treasurer, please call the roll.
Mr. Vasquez,
Yes.
Mrs. Gerken,
Yes.
Mrs. Barwick,
Yes.
Ms. Barnes,
Yes.
Mrs. Eichenberg.
Yes.
Thank you. We'll move on to 8.04, resolution in opposition to House Bill 322 and House Bill 327. And I will defer to my colleague to read this one. Ms. Gerken.
Thank you. This is a resolution in opposition to House Bill 322 and House Bill 327. Whereas two bills have been introduced in the Ohio House of Representatives that are currently in committee. One is House Bill 322, regards the teaching of certain current events, race, and sex in public schools. And the second is House Bill 327, prohibit teaching, advocating, or promoting divisive concepts in public schools and state agencies. And whereas the bills represent unprecedented and unlawful intrusion in and interference with public school curriculum and instruction. And whereas the topics of race, racism, gender, sexism, and other concepts outlined in these bills are not divisive, but are instead current and historical realities our students and our community face. And whereas educators and students can and should have appropriate conversations about difficult issues, and neither should be punished for doing so. And whereas school staff must be able to receive quality training on these and other challenging topics as they work to support the needs of our students. And these bills prohibit such training. And whereas, although both House Bills 322 and 327 primarily address public education, both bills are improperly in the House's State and Local Government Committee, as opposed to the Primary and Secondary Education Committee. And whereas our educators, students, and community will endure significant negative impact if these bills become law. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Board of Education of the Toledo City School District that Section 1, the board formally opposes and rejects House Bill 322 and House Bill 327 of the 134th General Assembly as an unprecedented and unlawful overreach and intrusion into public education. Section 2, the treasurer is authorized to deliver or cause to be delivered a certified copy of this resolution to community leaders, to members of the Ohio House of Representatives and Ohio Senate, and to the office of Governor Mike DeWine. Section 3, this resolution shall be in full force and effect from and immediately after its adoption, and shall supersede any prior resolution or act of this board, which may be inconsistent or duplicative with the provisions of this resolution. And it is hereby found and determined that all formal actions of this board concerning and relating to the passage of this resolution were taken in an open meeting of this board, and that all deliberations of this board and of any of its committees that resulted in such formal action were in meetings open to the public in compliance with all legal requirements, including Section 121.22 of the Ohio Revised Code.
Thank you, Ms. Griffin, for reading. I appreciate that. And may I have a request for a motion to approve then.
So moved. Durkin.
Seconded, Eichenberg.
Okay, thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Ms. Barnes, discussion now?
I'm a voice, sorry. I just want to say thank you for leading us, Madam President, Dr. Durant, because we are showing that we trust our educators to do what we know they're doing, and that's teaching our children. They're teaching our youth for the future. And as a daughter of an educator, it is discouraging to see the same people who applauded our educators 2 years ago, roughly, now attack them and berate how they teach our youth because they don't agree or it makes them uncomfortable. And I wish that, unfortunately, we have to look at our youth. Our youth are leading the way we should be as adults. They are standing together. They're in solidarity. They are sticking up, regardless of race, gender, identity, sexual orientation, or ethnicity. We're supposed to be doing that. And so I applaud our youth of today for being the leaders that we should be be right now. And this bill, opposing of both, is a step in the right direction. So thank you.
Further discussion? Ms. Eichenberg.
Ms. Barriga, thank you. One of the things I wanted to note was, I can't remember which grade levels it is, but I absolutely know that there are specific grade levels in which the English state test, OST, requires our students to be able to argue pros and cons in multiple sides, and teachers spend a significant portion of the year teaching our students to argue multiple sides of an issue. The way in which many of them do that is to take their latest scholastic news or similar type of curricular material, and they bring up an issue, and the kids get to present one side of it, pro or con. And to think of what this would do to intimidate a teacher to think, well, wait, what if this is considered divisive? Because I've asked them to do a pro and a con. What if this topic is not something we should talk about? My daughter once did a great essay on the minimum wage and whether it should be raised or not, because it was very topical and it was in their scholastic news that this is a big point of discussion. Is that divisive? It certainly could be construed as such. Where does it fall out in all of this language? How do you walk it back? What do you do as a teacher to change that lesson? It's not fair to our teachers to expect that they have to figure out what vague legislation means. We can't have a lawyer on call for every English and social studies teacher in our buildings. It's ridiculous. Like, think about that. That's just crazy. I'm going to ask your patience because I actually want to excerpt something that a teacher wrote that was documented that I thought was great. And he said, I can honestly tell you if the provisions in these bills were to become law, I would give serious consideration to changing what I teach. Not that there is anything wrong with what I am teaching or how I am teaching it, but because the stakes are too high for me and my career if a student or parent misconstrues the lessons. For example, in American literature, I teach the narrative of the life of Frederick Douglass. When my students learn about Frederick Douglass's life, we examine how the abolitionist movement grew and how Douglass's story influenced public sentiment about slavery. After finishing the novel, students complete group projects where they investigate contemporary issues where people are advocating for awareness and change. Students research topics like criminal justice reform, human trafficking, K-12 education, and the minimum wage. I give students the space to research the issues using credible sources, form their own opinions, and present it to their classmates. I do not steer them in any particular direction in their research, and when they present, there is opportunity for the whole class to further discuss the issue. So that teacher, who actually isn't a TPS teacher, but a pretty awesome teacher nonetheless, I know they do exist outside of our district, although they're mostly here. That teacher is saying, I'm not sure what I would teach. I would be nervous. We can't expect people to have legal representation on call to know if they're going to lose their license when they teach a topic. It's insane. I'm sorry, I don't know what else to call it. I'm irritated, I'm upset, and when I met with our own counsel for the district and asked them questions, I said, so if a teacher, and I know one of my students at home has a video permission slip waiting for me, can they watch these types of videos in class of a certain sort? So if in American history, the teacher sends home a slip that says, we're going to look at some contemporary issues in our society, and these movies are going to have adult themes. Parent, are you okay with this? The parent signs off. Our teachers would probably get put under the microscope under this legislation for showing roots, but I'm not sure if they could tie it back to some sort of pop culture type of theme that they would get in trouble for showing American Pie. And when you write a law that directs that to happen, there is something really, really wrong. So we need to step back, think about the fact that as soon as you start policing speech in classrooms, you're policing speech in general, and just stop. This is insane. That's all I have. I know I've said it a few times, but this is insane.
Thank you, Ms. Eichenberg. Mr. Vasquez.
Yeah, earlier you mentioned a meeting with our student voice, and everybody here knows who student voice is and who they represent. I want to make sure that we can respond to the issues that our students want us to address. And there are many issues, many issues that our students find that they want to discuss, that they find challenging, and that they bring up when we ask them and when we survey them. So I want to make sure that we're able to respond to them and that they, when they bring them up, that they go nowhere. And that would be very frightful to me, that students would be walking around with no place to have their concerns addressed. And their concerns are related to school environment. So I think I just really want to make sure that we're able to address those concerns they have.
Thank you. Ms. Gurkin, anything?
I just want to remind folks that it is our job to provide an excellent and equitable education. In order to do that, we need to have this assault on public education from our state leadership to cease.
Thank you. I think the resolution speaks for itself. So without further ado, I'd like to request a motion to approve discussion item 8.04. We just need a vote. I apologize.
Mr. Vasquez,
Yes.
Mrs. Gherkin,
Yes.
Mrs. Barwick,
Yes.
Ms. Barnes,
Yes.
Mrs. Eichenberg.
Yes.
Thank you. We'll move on to section 9, which are walk-ins. And are there any walk-ins this evening? Okay, thank you so much. Section 10 is our early childhood education action items, and I believe there are going to be separate votes this evening for those. The chair is Polly Taylor-Gherkin, and co-chair is Sheena Barnes. And I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Gherkin at this time.
Dr. Allen, we just have a couple of items if you wanted to give us a quick highlight.
Sure. The first 10.01 item is our annual self-assessment we're required to do, where we take a deep dive into our operations and set some goals for the upcoming year. And 10.02 is our request for a waiver of a non-federal match requirement for the Head Start grant for our last budget period.
And we need separate votes. We can't bundle those, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Well, then we will go ahead and request a motion to approve agenda item 10.01.
So moved, Eichenberg. Barnes, second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, treasurer, please call the roll.
Mr. Vasquez,
Yes.
Mrs. Gherkin,
Yes.
Mrs. Barwick,
Yes.
Ms. Barnes,
Yes.
Mrs. Eichenberg.
Yes.
I move approval of 10.02, Gherkin.
Second, Barwick. It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, treasurer, please call the roll.
Mr. Vasquez,
Yes.
Mrs. Gherkin,
Yes.
Mrs. Barwick,
Yes.
Ms. Barnes,
Yes.
Mrs. Eichenberg.
Yes.
Thank you. Section 11 of the agenda consists of early childhood education reports and minutes from this month's committee meetings and are provided for your information and reference. There's no action required, so we can proceed to section 12, which are early childhood education walk-ins. Do we have any this evening? Thank you. We'll move on to section 13. So this evening, we already had our comment section earlier from citizens, but if you're referring to walk-ins, walk-ins are walk-in resolutions that the board would need to approve. Yeah, for a comment section, you have until noon the day of the board meeting and to sign up to speak for the evening.
I'm sorry, sir, but by continuing to let you go on without allowing the same opportunity to everybody else in the room and following our own policy, we're essentially giving you time.
No, and we appreciate that, but you have 30 days to sign up at any point. Sure, okay, so city council is a separate entity. For the school board, you have until the next meeting. So you could, right now, tomorrow, call and sign up for the next meeting to speak. You have plenty of time to sign up at any point. Thank you. So we're going to move on to section 13 through 16, superintendent comments.
Yes, again, Dr. Cardona coming to town, we were excited because we were one of the finalists in him choosing what school district he wanted to go to, and he chose TPS, so we're excited about that. And the smart students made us all proud in regards to them, their maturity, as well as the questions they asked. He was very impressed in leaving out of here. At the same time, we're relaunching the Golden Apple Club. Again, those individuals who are 60 years or older get into all athletic events for free. So we're continuing to promote that in the Area Office on Aging and others. And congratulations to Kaylee Lewis. She was featured in New York City, downtown square, on the Jumbotron in regards to her being at the National Down Syndrome Awareness Campaign. So we're excited in essence of representing TPS and being TPS proud. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Durant. Mr. Schulte.
No comments this evening.
Board members? Mr. Vasquez?
Nothing.
Ms. Eichenberg?
Said enough tonight.
Ms. Barnes?
Just real quick, I would like to say happy Hispanic Heritage Month. And just because we want to make sure everyone is welcome and seen in our district. So just want to say that.
Thank you, Ms. Griffin.
If you will, I'd like to use a moment or two of my comments to remind folks how it comes to be that we have a board meeting that is usually a consent agenda that has been worked on for the entire month. Each of us sit on 3 or 4 committees that have 2 board members and that are also open to the public. Those agendas and every document that we discuss in those committee meetings are available ahead of the committee meeting on board docs. And then as you saw tonight's meeting, the minutes from the previous month's committee meetings are also published on board docs and then approved at the subsequent board meeting. We do a lot of work in our committees. We kind of divvy up the topics, as you can imagine, from seven committees. We have 7, I think, different committees. Each of us have several every month. So we've all been in, for me, probably 10 hours of meetings as we dive deeply into each of these topics before we come to this public meeting where we do our business in public, and just to be reminded that it's all as transparent as we can possibly make it in terms of having everything out there available on the website, available on board docs, and I think all of us would be happy to take calls or answer emails anytime anyone reaches out. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on to section 17, which is adjournment. If there are no other comments, I'd like to request a motion to adjourn.
Barnes, so moved.
Seconded, Eichenberg.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? The only thing I would like to say is thank you to the interpreters this evening. Treasurer, please call the roll.
Mr. Vasquez?
Yes.
Mrs. Gerken?
Yes.
Mrs. Varwig?
Yes.
Ms. Barnes?
Yes.
Mrs. Eichenberg?
Yes.